MAI, all parts. Part 1. Dave stares at the keys held by John, his new landlord. John is explaining something about the house, but Dave doesn't listen. His focus is on the keys. His patience is fading. John's accent is thick, either Russian or Ukrainian. Dave is familiar with both, but can't place which John is. Dave's too tired to care. A boarder exits his room and distracts the landlord. Finally, John offers Dave the keys, and with relief, he accepts. Dave enters his room, closes the door, and glances at his new home, for now or forever. Exhausted, Dave throws his backpack on the bed. It contains all his possessions, everything important to him after 53 years on Earth. Flopping down beside his bag, Dave listens to the landlord's muffled conversation projected through his door. He wants to yell, "Leave already!" But doesn't. He needs this room, this house, a new life. Eventually the voices stop. It's quiet, but not silent. Through his window Dave hears street traffic, and the metro passing by every few minutes, but it's faint, manageable. He places a pillow over his face and silently cries until sleep arrives. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Leon Smuck peers at the video monitor beneath his desk. The image cycles every few seconds between three views of a single room. East to west, west to east, and overhead. Normally Leon only checks the feed a few times a day. It hasn't changed in years, and it's a mystery he can't solve, the only one in his life. However, today, in between meetings to purchase every major social media platform on Earth to combine into one super app called Muskie trademark symbol, Leon notices a change in the images, the video. Something is happening. What is unknown. Leon notices the window blinds are open for the first time since he began watching the room. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Katyu wakes up in her lazyboy recliner. The one piece of furniture she shipped back to Hong Kong after her American work visa was revoked. Embarrassed, Katyu returned home, and unfortunately, was financially forced to live with her mother. Katyu glances at the extended sofa bed. Her mother made it up in the night in case Katyu decided to use it. She rarely fully sleeps, but appreciates her mother's concern. As she showers and shampoos her long silky black hair, Katyu attempts to forget the past few years, the incident in America. Katyu ties her hair up in a loose mess, enough to keep the cafe where she works happy, but she forgoes the traditional fancy buns and decorative hair clips the other employees wear. Before she leaves, she stares at her framed degrees. Her mother hung them prominently near the front door to show off to visitors. Unfortunately, it's also a regretful reminder to Katyu every time she leaves for her new occupation as a barista. Arriving at the cafe, Katyu notices her regular customer Kim. He comes in 2 or 3 times a week, and every time orders a large coffee, large water, and 1 serving of dumplings. Whoever is working assumes his request automatically and begins preparing it upon Kim's arrival, bypassing his need to verbally order. New employees are informed of his routine their first day. Although everyone in the cafe knows Kim, he only talks to Katyu. Katyu doesn't know why. Maybe he knows that she's secretly a programmer? Kim's caught her more than once looking at the code on his screen, but neither acknowledged her interest. Katyu noticed everything, but pretended not to care, to not be jealous or envious. Coding was her old life, and it's easier to pretend it never happened, rather than get excited it will happen again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 9 hours later Dave's bladder wakes him. He surveys the room again before heading to the shared washrooms. 2 are located on his floor of the boarding house. The bathroom cleanliness is questionable, but not disgusting or unsanitary. It will have to do. He has no choice, no more hotels or Airbnbs. This is all he can afford. Before he rented, Dave decided he'll never live with relatives again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Katyu struggles with the noise in the cafe. Someone is always dropping or banging something. She doesn't remember this in American coffee shops. She does remember being a customer and conversing with friends or dates. Maybe none of them noticed the background noise. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Leon calls Katyu on FaceTime. She's one of the few people he'll communicate with visually, and insists on it when the conversation is important. Leon believes this is the most important call he'll make, and Katyu will receive. Where are you? He asks Katyu the instant she answers. I'm at work, almost done. Why? Something is happening, the window blind is up, I think it's time, Leon states with excitement. Staring at the screen, Katyu freezes while she computes the consequences in her mind. Leon smiles, but Katyu is not paying attention. 3 seconds later she blurts out, I'm on my way home. And ends the call. Leon stretches back in his old, plain, standard office chair, smiles, and thinks, finally something interesting on this planet that I can't figure out, besides gravity of course. I have to believe Einstein found out gravity is a bitch and quit. And I think the universe doesn't want me to solve it, although I probably could if I didn't have all these fucking companies to run and save the fucking Earth from destroying itself while simultaneously developing a method to leave Earth in case we are hit by an asteroid. All the idiots on this planet fuck the environment regardless of my cars, batteries and countless inventions. Hell, I could transfer the DNA of every living soul on Earth to Mars in a single trip. In a container not much bigger than a bread box. Note to self, find out how much space it takes to hold 8 billion samples of DNA suitable for cloning. And then once I finish developing my brain-link trademark symbol super consciousness and pure DNA trademark symbol automatic cloning technologies, I could rename it everyone on Mars. Plus, if anyone pisses me off on bitter trademark symbol or musky trademark symbol between now and then, I could easily misplace their DNA during the trip. I'll teach those fuckers a lesson they won't forget. If it comes to that, of course. I have to believe once I merge bitter trademark symbol and every other platform onto musky trademark symbol, the world will change and everyone will love me, my app, my vehicles, and my rockets. If not, fuck them, I'll take a shipload of women with me to Mars and leave all the men behind. Fuck every other piece of male DNA, all Mars needs is my sperm and willing donors. I'm Leon Smuck, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Note to reader, I'm not sure where I'm heading with this idea, but here are a few options I'm considering. Option 1, Leon returns to the monitor, on screen someone is entering the room. Option 2, Leon cancels the remainder of his meetings, bitter trademark symbol and musky trademark symbol can wait. Leon remembers the day his first spaceship sent humans into space and how he got on his knees and prayed to God for the crew's safety. Option 3, God. Leon remembers God is listening to his mind and restrains his thoughts to only good, not the evil. Leon could rain down on the world in a second, if someone really pissed him off. Option 4, aliens. Leon calls his alien boss on a secret alien device and explains his progress infiltrating Earth as an android pretending to be human. Option 5, dimensions. Leon waits until the evening and when safely home consumes massive amounts of DMT to enter another dimension and talk to the creators of our universe. Leon thinks the creators are pricks, but he has no choice, it's the only place he finds answers on occasion. It's his only hope. Option 6, dead people. Leon is a medium. He gets drunk, slips into a trance and talks to dead Einstein and Tesla. Regrettably, Leon has a beef with both and berates them for hours about their amateuristic math before passing out in his tub fully clothed and soaked in urine. Option XXX, Leon begins masturbating furiously. Part 2. Katyu locates her boss and quickly explains that she must leave to return home. Her Mandarin is poor, her Cantonese passable, but when panicked like she currently feels, she uncontrollably mixes both, and hopes for the best. The boss tells her, it's okay, leave. Running out of the cafe, unsure if he understood, she wonders, do I care if he fires me? Maybe this is the day I never have to return. Katyu notices Kim as she exits. She wants to stop and explain, but can't. She waves, a little too enthusiastically, and yells bye, leaving before hearing his response. Dave stands and reviews his room, a double bed, a nightstand, a desk with an office chair, a wardrobe, a 3-drawer dresser, a fridge, and lastly a sitting chair and ottoman. It would be better with his own washroom, he thinks. But knows this is the best he'll get in a city full of homeless drug addicts seeking shelter. Dave needs groceries, but decides to wait until tomorrow. He knows the extra 100 lbs of body fat he's carrying will provide any calories he needs until then. It's not his first fast. The next morning, after another 8 hours of sleep, Dave still feels tired, but is ready. After quick trip on the metro to pick up a Tim Hortons coffee and donut, he's back, laptop open, time to work. Dave writes. The 28th of November, 2020, Day 1. Movie idea #66. 1. God gets pissed off with everyone complaining about how hard his world is to live in and decides to go back to mortal form and live as a human to prove them wrong. 2. Normally God would just send these complainers to his friend Satan, but recently God sent nearly everyone to his counterpart. God is lonely, he needs someone to tell him a happy story about their life. 3. God decides to pause the afterlife. Anyone who dies remains in temporary stasis. They know they are dead from earth, but still conscious. They remember their life, but cannot feel their body. 3.1 They have two options: review their past life for eternity, or until God returns, or experience God's life on earth, through his eyes, his thoughts, his feelings, in real time. 4. God created the rules and God plays by the rules. He wipes his own memory before being reborn to a random family anywhere on the planet. He follows the rules, no different than anyone else, his universe, his rules, for all. 5. With one exception. God is playing with a stacked deck. His mind is millions of times faster than any human on their first trip into his world. It's not fair. 5.1 Feelings seem to be the biggest complaint by humans. God decides he'll tweak the universe slightly and increase his senses tenfold. By his calculations 5 would be enough, but again he'll need to silence the critics at the end of his experiment. His death. An increase in sensitivity will slow God's mind to a normal level. 5.2 And one other fail-safe. As an inventor, as the inventor of the universe, God's default creativity level, even without his past memory, is far more advanced and again would be an unfair advantage. To keep everything fair, God implements one additional new rule of the universe that also will only apply to him/her during his/her stay. God's new identity cannot invent or discover anything before another human on earth. He can think about it, he can actually solve the issue in his head, but he will never be allowed to be first, to take advantage of his idea. 6. Otherwise, God would probably solve gravity after his first physics class and the entire world economy would collapse when he develops a tiny electrical generator that ends the need for fossil fuels and it destroys the oil and gas industries overnight. 7. God believes, by frustrating himself with these limitations, he'll never succeed any more or less than any other human. 8. Blah, 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 God's plan works, he's God. 9. Continue later. Note, have God be a dick. Dave laughs to himself, the movie idea sucks, he knows it, but doesn't care, he'll take the Shrek approach, better out than in. Dave is finally hungry and leaves to buy some groceries. There is a microwave in the kitchen, but Dave's thinking he'll put one in his room eventually, not today. Katyu watches an unknown person type on a laptop, she's enthralled. She has no idea what he's typing or why, but she can't stop watching. Earlier she spent 8 hours watching this same person, man, sleep, again enthralled. Under strict instructions to call Leon the moment anything happens, Katyu calls Leon when the man returns with coffee and a donut. Together on FaceTime, they watch him typing for a while, wondering about the content, the purpose of his words, the video, everything. Until now, the only item of information Leon and Katyu could determine was the approximate latitude of the room. Although the blinds were closed on the window, sunlight still enters, and by assuming the time zone was in North America, they narrowed the room's placement down to a few degrees. Unfortunately located around the 49th parallel, which contains the majority of Canada's population, and a large populace on the USA side. The location of the room could be either country, Leon hopes it's USA, Katyu Canada. The furniture gives no further hints on the location. A couple of pieces look European or IKEA-like, common nearly everywhere in the industrialized world. The final clue, and the one that fascinates Katyu, kept her watching the screen before the man even arrived, is a stained glass window. Its pattern is unique and Katyu believes the key to detecting where the room is located. It also projects a kaleidoscope of dancing and still-colored lights and patterns on the walls throughout the room. The dancing she believes is from a tree and leaves. Filtering / manipulating the light. For months, nightly, after her job at the cafe, Cat Yu would review the footage of the empty room. The video feed, automatically recorded on her laptop via a link Leon provided and only accessible through his dark link trademark symbol Internet technology, DIT trademark symbol, is Cat Yu's portal to another world, another existence. For 6 months of her life, every night Cat Yu watched the daily recording at 10x speed. She studied the animated patterns of light on the wall and looked for clues, anything Leon might find interesting. Now it's Liv and she's watching with Leon Smuck. Leon stops watching the video with Cat Yu, she'll observe and write a report for him to review. He returns to editing a PowerPoint presentation explaining his plan to take over the world as a benevolent dictator and have his Muskie trademark symbol app installed on every device globally. The man video continues to play as Cat Yu falls asleep in her chair. The laptop doubles as a heating pad, sitting perfectly balanced on Cat Yu's six-pack, the one other item she brought back from America, along with an addiction for running. Cat Yu's mother, always curious, notices the screen while she prepares the sofa bed in the middle of the night. After determining it's not porn, she figures it must be some sort of fad the kids are doing, watching each other do nothing, seems about right she thinks. Mrs. Yu doesn't understand Cat Yu's generation, or Cat Yu. 2 hours later Cat Yu wakes from a dream and gasps, she dreamt she was in the room, alone for months. Cat Yu is scared, unsure why, it's only a dream, but to her it felt real, and it felt like prison. Cat Yu talks out loud to herself, remembers her departure from the USA, fuck Cat, you almost went to prison. Was it worth it? Are you happy with yourself, Cat? All you had to do was tell one white lie. One mistruth and you'd be living large in San Francisco, Cat. Instead you are living with your mother and watching an empty monitor for months. Are you proud, Cat? Pleased with your actions? Was it worth it? And what are you going to do about this man in the video, Cat? You can't watch it all day long, you have to work, why don't you write a program to monitor the video? Start with a motion sensor, you know that code is easy. Right, Cat? Are you listening, Cat? No, don't ask Leon if you can write the code, just write it. You know this is why he contacted you, you know this is why he trusts you, just get off your ass and write the software, you dumb girl. Option 1, Cat opens her GIT Hub account, selects New Project, and begins coding. Option 2, Cat wonders who the man in the room is. What is the purpose of everything? She knows Leon is special, that is why she ruined her career to stop a false lawsuit against Mr. Smuck. A suit instigated by her former employer based on her data they, the company. Falsely modified. The company insisted she testify to the validity of the data or else. After months watching the trial and Leon Smuck on the stand, she couldn't lie, couldn't ruin a man she didn't know, a man willing to spend his own fortune to save humanity. Instead, she exposed her employer. Was nearly charged with perjury, ruined her career, wasted her education, and was forced to restart her life in shame from her mother's small apartment in Hong Kong. Option 3, God Cat Yu is visited by an angel and is reminded her duty is to serve God and Leon Smuck. To help Leon with anything he requests, non-sexual. The angel reminds Cat Yu to be careful around Leon because with her incredible beauty, youthfulness, and magnificent silky black hair, Leon is likely to ask her to birth a child. Which is her choice if she pleases, but according to the angel this is not the right time for her to have a child. Not until God's plan is complete. Option 4, aliens. Cat Yu wonders about her regular customer Kim. He's so weird, like an alien, I wonder if aliens exist. If they do, I hope they show themselves soon. This planet needs something new to talk about in the cafe, I can only overhear the same conversations so many times without killing myself. If he's an alien, wouldn't they have something more advanced to code with than a laptop? What would an alien code? Why would an alien go to a coffee shop? Couldn't or wouldn't they just live in their ships? Wouldn't any ship from another planet be more advanced and comfortable than an old cafe in Hong Kong? Kim is cute. Can aliens have sex with humans? Why does Kim only talk to me? Am I an alien and don't know? Are we all aliens? Option 5, dimensions. Katyu extends her laser buoy to its maximum extension, places a towel under her neck, and begins to meditate. An hour later she reaches the DMT dimension and Katyu unknowingly speaks to Leon at light speed, neither fully understanding the conversation in the moment, but each believing everything will eventually make sense. Leon exits 15 minutes later, his chemically induced trip is over. Katyu remains for hours, talking to the others and wakes up refreshed, alive, the first time in years. Option 6, dead people. Katyu fingers the burn mark on the arm of her laser buoy. She remembers when she tried smoking, it helped her sleep. And she remembers the night she burned her chair. Katyu doesn't tell her mother why she brought the chair back to Hong Kong because Katyu is panpsychic and communicates to the chair when she sleeps. The chair has a consciousness to Katyu. One she is named Squidgy. Her mother would not understand. Option XXX, Katyu closes GIT Hub after 5 minutes of coding, opens Pornhub and fingers herself for hours until finally falling asleep in a puddle of anxious sweat, dried lube, and a variety of bodily fluids. Part 3. Winter 1985, rural Saskatchewan. Through his bedroom window, 15-year-old Leon Smuck watches his cousin Doug skating on the outdoor rink. It's Saturday, 6 a.m., Leon could sleep in until 6:30, his Uncle Joe allowing an extra 30 minutes of sleep on the weekends, but Leon's internal clock is primed for the 6 a.m. wake-up call. Leon writes a letter home to his mother, a tradition he started upon arrival to Saskatchewan and farm life. Dear Mother, I've lived in Canada exactly 6 months today. I think I'm finally getting used to the lifestyle, and more importantly how to handle Uncle Joe. Last week he asked me to turn my Commodore 64 off at night because it's a waste of electricity. I considered explaining, in detail, about how the lights he uses to illuminate Doug's outdoor rink consume considerably more energy than my computer, but I restrained myself. Like you told me before I left home, some arguments are not worth it. Besides, I found a workaround by installing a kill switch on the back of the computer for the lights and speaker. When I'm coding I turn the lights on and if Joe comes into my room everything looks and sounds normal. Then, when I need to compile my code or run calculations that take up most of the night, I kill the lights and let the computer run in silent mode. Uncle Joe hasn't noticed, best of both worlds in my opinion. School is fine, most of the teachers are similar to the homeland and only teach the bare minimum and are annoyed by thought-provoking questions during their lessons. The only exception is my physics and calculus teacher Black Mike. No one calls him that to his face, but everyone knows the nickname and the stories behind it. I should mention he's white, not black, but he has a large black beard and hair like Einstein, but dark and greasy. Black Mike is the largest person in the school and he uses it to his advantage every day to terrorize any student he catches running in the hall or talking too loud or too long at their lockers. His normal move is to grab the male students by the shirt and push them against the locker. On occasion he slides them up the locker, like the Graviton ride I told you about when we went to the Calgary Stampede. Please reread that letter if you don't remember. Anyway, Black Mike doesn't eat with the other teachers, he runs the detention room instead, a completely silent experience. On Friday I was sent to detention. The biology teacher disagreed with my alternate view of evolution, one based on physics instead of blood. She said I wasted the entire class's time. I disagreed, but nonetheless I ended up in detention, and for the first time detention was empty of other students and I was alone with Black Mike, and instead of silence we talked physics. I won't bore you with the details, but he did tell me he takes the bus to Calgary once a month to read the current journals in various sciences. He offered to bring me back some old issues. I think he has a secret. The rumor around school and also by Uncle Joe is that he goes to Calgary to gamble and party. But if he wanted to stop that rumor he could just tell others what he told me, no? Maybe he doesn't care? Maybe he's too smart to care? I definitely think he should be more than a teacher of physics, but he seems content. On another note, my ice hockey skills are no better, my skating still sucks, but Doug and his friends let me play goalie, which is fine, I enjoy it, although I rarely stop a puck. However, I like to believe I'm increasing their confidence by allowing the constant goals. I did help Uncle Joe modify his homemade Zamboni, garden tractor plow, some old weed sprayer heads, 3 55-gallon water drums, and a ton of welded pipe, all pulled on a homemade trailer. It broke for the umpteenth frickin' time the other day, like almost everything does on the farm. I took the opportunity to point out a change to the propane burners that would decrease the time it takes to heat the water. You know Joe, at first he said no before I could finish explaining the thermodynamics. But once I drew out the design in simple terms on a piece of paper, he decided to give it a try. He even let me do the welding, which I enjoyed. Anyway, the modification worked and I think he was impressed, although how do you tell with him or any farmer? That's all I have to update you on. I'm hoping to talk to Black Mike again soon, but I'd rather not do it in detention. As usual, I'm fine, you don't need to worry about me. I'm glad you suggested I come to Canada. Love. Your son? Leon Smuck. Leon prints out the letter on his dot matrix printer and signs it. The sound normally drives the family dog Lulu crazy, but she's outside barking at Doug as he skates back and forth on the rink, allowing Leon to print uninterrupted. He'll give his Aunt Joan the envelope to post in town. Leon wonders if she ever accidentally reads the outgoing mail. Under the guise of coding alone, Leon remains home while the rest of the family goes into town to watch Doug play hockey. Doug is the local Gretzky, skates circles around the others, and is only stopped when body checked, the goal of every player on the opposing team. Doug's success is based on the nearly full-sized rink Uncle Joe keeps maintained for him. Doug practices whenever he wants, compared to the other players who skate only a few times a week. Once the coast is clear, Leon heads to the family room to watch TV, more specifically listen to it. A couple of months ago the family purchased a satellite TV dish and since then Leon has been fascinated with the device. His cousin showed him how to view the scrambled pornography, but his interest was in science, not sex, and instead he found a scrambled Houston channel that interviewed NASA scientists and astronauts. The image was scrambled, but Leon didn't care, he only needed to hear their words, their voices, not see their faces. If no interviews of interest were playing, Leon would spend hours scanning the skies with the satellite hoping to pick up an unknown channel, or better yet a signal from beyond Earth, a message sent by another planet, another sentient being, a sign. Leon ensures the dish is back at its original location before Uncle Joe and the family return. It's something Joe would notice in an instant and question Leon. Leon likes to ask questions, not answer them, particularly Joe's. 156 miles north of Leon, Dave sits in the principal's office receiving a lecture about why he shouldn't quit school. Especially halfway through the final year. Dave doesn't care, this is the final lecture in Dave's mind, maybe in his entire life. The principal tells Dave you'll never be anything without a high school diploma. Dave sits silent, not giving the authority figure a single expression of concern or emotion of any sort. He wants to tell the principal to fuck off but he doesn't, he waits for the droning to stop and once excused, he cleans out a hat and jacket from his locker and leaves the school forever. A week later Dave is on a plane heading to his new job as a grocery clerk for the Hudson's Bay Company in Inuvik, NWT. The only thought in his mind about the principal is just watch me motherfucker, just watch me. Present day. Katyu begins coding and names her software MAI, and nicknames it MAI. Katyu builds an algorithm to catch the man's keystrokes. In days she can capture his every keystroke, but still can't see his screen. He's using multiple apps and the mouse. Katyu needs to separate the raw data into actual usable data like emails, chat messages, or the full content of anything he writes. MAI does the hard work, looking at the actual data, while Katyu observes and guides her AI when it makes mistakes. Leon and Katyu want a name, it's MAI's top priority, and a week later she concludes the man's name is either Dave or David. Katyu continues coding, finishes the voice interface and asks MAI, what percentage of the time does David finish emails with Dave, compared to David? MAI responds, 51% David, 49% Dave. Katyu thanks MAI, but the AI is silent, no response. Katyu remembers she took out the small talk portion of the AI code as it was annoying and anthropomorphizes her program. Katyu believes computers are silent slaves, not sentient. Dave writes a short movie idea #67. All the dead psychologists and psychiatrists from the beginning of time are tasked in the afterlife with building an AI that can cure any mental illness with only YouTube, Netflix, Twitter, and Substack. They succeed, of course, and as a prize the creator of the universe reanimates every dead person ever that wants to be reanimated, their choice. Unfortunately, their achievement puts every psychologist and psychiatrist alive on the planet out of work. No need for any of them. All it takes to cure depression is an internet connection and some free time. In fact, the more free time, the faster you heal. That is the brilliance of the algorithm. Dave sits at his desk and writes his plan for the last 3 days of November and all of December. 1. Do some shit. 2. Write some shit. 3. Lose weight. 3.1 Walk 5-10 km per day. 3.2 Go back on keto once your welfare/disability check arrives. Eat whatever until then, it makes no difference. 4. Sleep. 5. Forget life. Hearing aid appointment, don't forget, set an alarm. Dave receives a hearing aid to help with his severe tinnitus. The device masks the perceived loud ringing with white noise at a level equal to the annoying tone and begins to give him some relief, although he's disappointed because the audiologist said it may take years before any noticeable lasting improvement. Dave doesn't feel like he'll last years, but he has no choice. It's the only option available for his condition. On New Year's Eve, Dave's father dies. Dave has not talked to or seen his father for years. Dave doesn't communicate to any of his family except one sister on occasion, when he needs money, and his adult daughter every few months. Option 1, a week later Dave reads his father's obituary. It's crap, it's bullshit, it pisses Dave off. Dave writes an accurate obituary for his father, knowing it will never be published. Option 2, Dave does nothing and accepts the poorly written account of his father's life. Option 3, God appears to Dave and explains his father was actually Moses in another lifetime, but that Dave is a nobody, no link to anyone else in the past or future, an anomaly, but that God has plans for Dave. Dave tells the God to fuck off. Go fuck yourself, you stupid fucking old cunt. Option 4, aliens. Dave's dad, a leader in the alien world, is returned to his ship orbiting Earth. After a day to recover from human death, he returns to his alien existence and begins to monitor Dave and others through 24-hour constant surveillance thanks to lead paint, an invention created by the aliens to infiltrate humanity. Lead paint looks like normal paint and can be used on any surface. It contains microscopic self-solar charged batteries, cameras, and microphones to capture data. The paint then sends files over any Wi-Fi network within range. Aliens who control the but don't need passwords to access any network anywhere. Dave's room is covered in lead paint and his existence is recorded in 11K clarity 24/7 lights on or off. At any point Dave's dad can watch or listen to him, but he can't interfere, even upon imminent injury or death. Option 6, Dimensions. Larry, Curly, and Moe sit in front of a large console with various analog dials. Via a holographic display they simultaneously watch the top 10 comedians in the world and stage performing their act while laughing their old dimensionless asses off. Option 7, Dead people. Dave's dad's body is flown to the Antarctic and is stored in an underground cavern until the cloning process the ex-Nazi scientists are developing is complete. Once the technology is undeniably perfect, the former Nazis will give their discovery to the world and ask for global forgiveness of the German people and state. Option XXX, Dave ignores the obituary and returns to his pride and joy, an app called Snappy trademark symbol, original name, Snapper trademark symbol. A perfect system where the user can take a picture or screenshot of anything, person, plant, place, etc. And the app returns a list of pornographic videos containing a similar-looking person, plant or place. Dave knows it's genius and will revolutionize the porn industry and maybe the world. Especially once he finishes the code to strip off every piece of advertising and replace it with his own, advertising back to the same porn sites. Plus, as a bonus, anyone trying to search for pictures of kids or animals is tagged and a report sent to their local police force anonymously. After testing his code on Pornhub for hours, Dave becomes extremely horny and masturbates furiously until he falls asleep in his office chair naked, alone in the world, and covered in coconut oil. MAI, Part 4, Coffee. Unable to sleep, Dave watches a Joe Rogan YouTube video about consciousness and writes a few thoughts. The coffee pot stared them both in the face and neither saw the consciousness in its reflection, or their reflection in it. Remove emotions from the equation and the concept is clear. The coffee pot is its own identity, or entity. The coffee within the pot is equally an identity within its molecules, and maybe now is joined with the coffee pot at some quantum level we are unable to understand. Where both entities are free to share their experiences with one another in some degree of data and intelligence, however one defined by them, the two entities, not us, the observer. We cannot prove emotions in inanimate objects, so remove them from the equation, the math. We cannot prove communication between humans and hot coffee in a container. The coffee is unable to tell us its story. Was it truly humanely harvested and grown without exploitation? We humans do not know, but maybe the coffee pot knows, understands the coffee, listened to the coffee story like Joe listened to Mr. Goff's theories politely and with genuine interest in the concept. Maybe 2 conversations occurred on the table Joe is filling with memories. Or 3 when we include the table. Without human-like emotion, why wouldn't the table and coffee pot be friends? A type of intellectual consciousness, I see. Both Joe and Mr. Goff are free to respond to this post, this comment, my opinion, my free will. Both are free to use emotion in their response to my criticisms, or not. I'm free to use emotion or stoicism in my comments, free will. I can express my identity or emotion though my words. All without meeting Joe or Mr. Goff, without speaking a single audible sentence. Will they be offended? Does it matter? Is expression of free thought more important than the concept? Joe Rogan is one of most influential people on the planet. And he is the only one I observe who seems to truly care about both the subject in his interviews and the beliefs of his guests. He's interested in talking to his guests honestly. Why? Views. Money. How does that change Joe? How has it changed him since the Spotify deal? Did anyone notice a difference? A need for a larger neck hole to get his inflated ego through? Or is he still the same person who found a way to communicate with another conscious entity for hours, publicly, and with true curiosity? The coffee, pot, and table cannot communicate with humans, but are they IC? Or are they recording devices with unlimited storage saving their experience for the future? A day where physics stops talking about cats and waves and focuses on people and emotion? A day where they find the particle that controls emotion? Discover how to control that particle, and pure intellect exists the next day. But, is that not a boring existence? Pure thought, math. Would you end your life today knowing your consciousness will last forever? Are you that confident in panpsychism, religion, or any currently unprovable belief? Or, not to put you on the spot about your mortality, which is the purpose of consciousness, no? Would you be willing to end your life a few years early, to prove you are not the sum of your atoms? Or the math of your existence? Will you always exist? Panpsychism is a one-bit solution, on or off, believe it or not. Until you find a middle ground, a pot of coffee, or maybe pot to add a third option, a new variable, an upgrade to a 2-bit solution, your current theory Mr. Goff is more than a mid-COVID human can manage. I get it, I like it. But I enjoy watching Joe get to know the person over the cup of coffee, more than wondering if coffee feels, if anything, or maybe everything, all are options, possibilities. And I personally, yes, I'm a person not a comment bot, I believe maybe there is a chance the pot can talk to the coffee at some strange level, some mathematical emotion, maybe, a pattern in the numbers. Or maybe the pot heals the coffee while it's brewed. Maybe they exchange formulas, math, like we used to exchange phone numbers. An introduction at the data level? No internet required. Maybe the coffee is scared. It's about to go from solid beans, each an entity or identity with a past, to a blend of their chopped pieces, to then a possible death by boiling hot water. I hope they don't have emotion, it's a crappy ending. Maybe the coffee is sacred, or becomes revered in the coffee world of consciousness for the honor of experiencing the conversation firsthand. And maybe even alleviating some jet lag. A noble end in their world but inconsequential in ours. However, if we add that third variable, a language, the pot, the water, and coffee grinds all use, then we have communication between three unknown entities, a community. One forced by our actions when we place them in the same room. Maybe the coffee pot is the god of the coffee. Maybe immediately after the beans are pulverized into a few thousand pieces the pot says relax, you'll be fine. It speaks in math of course, or maybe English, but thoughts not audible, or maybe audible out of our range of hearing, maybe they hear us, we don't hear them. Maybe they hold the secrets. Maybe time works differently for non-human mathematical communications. Maybe after calming the coffee beans down about their sudden death the pot, table, water. Everything in the room except the humans have a good laugh about it together. They laugh at the coffee's fear of death. And then they boil the caffeine out of the finely ground beans and Joe and Mr. Gorf share the spoils, the death of an entity. By breaking bread they separated the entity. And maybe they carry it halfway around the world before release it in a toilet on a plane, or the ground in the forest. Then what? How about free will first, then consciousness? Is that the question? Can those two exist without each other? Two new particles for physicists to fight over? Claim as their own. We cannot give a table free will, but we can accept it's reproducible mathematically, physically, with or without physics. We cannot give a pot or coffee consciousness, we are unable to give what we are struggling to conceive. The brown liquid enters each of their bodies, does its consciousness? Do they feel caffeine or the experience of the water and coffee molecules, or both? Did I write this on a pot of coffee or on a lot of pot? Does it matter? What if it's both? Neither? Who cares, you read it correct. I communicated my opinion, correct? Does the source of the molecules that fuel my opinion cloud it for others? Is free thought pure if your process is revealed? Should we ask people what they ate, smoked or injected before we speak to them? Or should we accept them at face value? End of story. Dave posts his thoughts as a comment on YouTube knowing it will likely never be read by Joe, his guest, or probably anyone. However, a force, a feeling, a frustration pushes him to post any thought he has as soon as he receives it. Dave sets up multiple online identities and begins to pretend his life is something it isn't. Interesting. Option 1, Dave reconsiders his cannabis budget for the month and then doubles it. Option 2, Dave reconsiders his cannabis budget and halves it. Option 3, God wakes up Jesus and tells him he must return to Earth immediately. Jesus asks if the Portal 3 has been released yet, preferably on PS5, and God says no. Jesus refuses to return, God is pissed off but is forced to accept Jesus' free will. Option 4, aliens. Dave's dad walks around Dave's UFO admiring the elegant saucer-shaped design. Located in storage on the mothership, it's become a bit of a mystery on the alien vessel. The crew are often found walking around the ship touching it, looking for the unseen door. Option 6, Dimensions. The Three Stooges are alerted to a new comedian on their display. It's his first time performing and he's picked the world's toughest show to debut on, Kill Tony. The new comic kills it, the crowd goes wild, a star is born. Option 7, Dead People. Bernard, the great-great-great-grandson of an ex-Nazi, and located deep underground in Antarctica, reads Dave's post about panpsychism and sends the link to his boss with the subject "Maybe this is him?" Option XXX, after expressing his emotions through his words about panpsychism, Dave is spent and falls asleep without masturbating for hours. MAI, Part 5, The End. Cat You and Dave Go to Mars. Joe Rogan Experience number 3000. Sometime in the future. On a Monday. Surrounded by Leon's bodyguards, Dave, Cat You, and Leon walk into the Joe Rogan studios. The location is safe, Joe maintains his own personal security detail, but Leon isn't taking any chances with Dave and Katyu. After this podcast they will jump from nearly unknowns to being the most famous married couple on the planet when Leon announces to Joe's listeners who they really are. Katyu sits directly across from Joe, Dave to her right with a laptop, and Leon to Joe's left. It's a full house and destined to be Joe's longest podcast ever. Joe, Leon, who have you brought me today? Leon, Katyu and Dave, the first two people I will send to Mars. Joe reaches over the table and shakes Katyu's hand. He extends it to Dave, but Dave turns his eyes to his computer ignoring Joe's gesture. Katyu, sorry, he's a bit OCD at times. Joe, no problem. Katyu, and he's mute. Joe is confused, mute? Joe pauses and then asks Leon, how can you send a person to Mars who doesn't communicate verbally? Isn't that a liability? Leon, normally yes, but Dave and Katyu can communicate telepathically faster and more efficiently than any two people verbally. Joe, loudly and surprised telepathy? Are you talking about using your BrainLink trademark symbol technology? Leon, no. Joe, so how do they communicate telepathically? Leon, I don't know. Joe, but you know they can. Leon, as will you, and all of your listeners shortly. Joe, okay, let's get into this. Where do we start? Leon, it's a long story. Joe, it's my podcast, make it as long you like. I have nothing else planned today except the Kill Tony podcast tonight, and I assume we'll be done by then. Katyu, I guarantee we'll be done by then. Joe, we have tickets for Kill Tony too, and Dave plans on signing up. Joe, a mute comic? Katyu, I'll speak for him. Joe, are you two communicating as we speak? Katyu, yes, but he hasn't told me to say anything specific. When he does I'll let you know, or he'll speak through his computer. Joe, and you and Dave don't know how this telepathic connection between you works? Katyu, no. Joe, fuck. But you can prove it? Katyu, yes. Joe, I don't know where to start. Leon, let me give you the backstory. Leon explains the story of his teenage years at his Uncle Joe's farm in Saskatchewan, how he escaped the South American environment that he grew up in. One not conducive to his beliefs, for a second chance in Canada. He tells Joe about the satellite dish on the farm and how he would use it to scan the cosmos for signals from space but failed to find one before he graduated high school and left the prairies for university. Leon continues to explain about his cousin Doug and his hockey obsession, and the unfair distribution of electricity on the farm. Joe laughs hard at the secret kill switch Leon installed on his Commodore 64. Leon, and when Doug made it to a junior professional team a few years later he invested his signing bonus into my first company, which as you know Joe I sold for $1 billion. At which point in time, most people then believed I was a billionaire, and I was, for a minute or two. Then I transferred $10 million to Doug removing my billionaire status, but making him an instant millionaire. Leon, unfortunately shortly afterwards Uncle Joe died from cirrhosis. I believe it's from the crappy Calgary export beer that he drank day and night, but who knows? Joe, Calgary export? I've been to Calgary, I don't remember drinking that beer. Dave, via voice synthesis throughout podcast it's disgusting, like they only used the bottom of the barrels. Leon, besides the point. Uncle Joe was gone, Doug returned to the family farm, intent on selling it with the intention of placing his mother in a condo in the city or town of her choosing. But then, instead of selling the farm he leased out the cropland, sold the cattle and let the thousands of acres of pasture return to nature. Not because he's an environmentalist, simply because he was tired of the smell, the noise, the hassle. He was a hockey player who had a farm. Not the other way around. Secretly Dave and Katyu are communicating back and forth, discussing the podcast in their minds. Joe notices their 1 second long glances between them. They look like teenagers in love, not adults. Leon continues, Doug was free of the farm, a millionaire, offering to invest in my next venture, and on his way to the NHL. When, of course, he was injured by a bad check, ending his career, like a typical movie scenario, but real life. Sorry Joe, I said it was long. Joe, keep going, I trust you man. Leon, after his injury Doug had nothing to do, he could have restarted the farm life but was done with that hassle, so I suggested a new project he and I could work on alone, SETI. Joe, but SETI already exists. Leon sarcastically, their SETI, the one that has found nothing but one maybe signal never to be repeated? How much has been invested? What have they found? What could they do with a signal anyway? Joe, true, but what could you do with a signal? Leon, I'm about to show you. Leon explains to Joe how Doug traveled the prairie provinces meeting farmers and buying old satellite dishes. Doug spent 2 years and bought over 999 dishes for the project. He set them up throughout his pasture land while Leon accessed them remotely and built his own radio array to search the skies for aliens. Joe, and you / he didn't tell anyone what you were doing? Leon, no, remember by now I was no longer Doug's geeky cousin from another country, I was me, Leon Smuck. So when Doug's neighbors and the community started wondering about the field of dishes, Doug simply said Leon is eccentric, he likes dishes and I'm storing them for him. Joe, and they bought it? Leon, look at me, my life, I'm the definition of eccentric, of course they bought it. Plus it's Saskatchewan, all they really care about is farming and hockey. Doug can change any conversation in a second with his stories about how he met Gretzky when he tried out for the Phoenix Coyotes. Joe, okay, but how does that get us to these two? Who I've been watching these past few minutes and they definitely have a connection, but telepathic. Leon, should we demonstrate? Joe, please. Leon pulls out a new pack of standard playing cards, tells Joe he can use another deck if he thinks the cards are marked. The cards are not marked. Leon, technically one of his guards, bought them at a dollar store on the way to the studio. Leon hands the cards to Joe to inspect and shuffle. He mixes the cards for a few minutes. Leon, would you agree that there is no way Dave or Kat you could know the order of those cards, correct? Joe, I agree. Leon, the odds are, a deck of cards have never been shuffled into the precise order you just created, ever. Joe grins, I said I agreed. Leon instructs Joe to hand the deck to Kat-Yu. Kat-Yu accepts the deck and holds them close to her chest so Dave cannot see, and then peeks at the first card, the 7 of diamonds. Dave types 7D into his laptop and hits enter. The computer speaks 7 of diamonds and Kat-Yu shows Joe the card. Before Joe can comment, Dave submits the next card, 3 of clubs. Joe looks around like he's seeing a trick, but can't figure out how they are doing it. Are they using signals? Leon, no, when Kat-Yu showed you the card she saw the next card and that information was instantly sent to Dave. Dave pulls out a roll of duct tape from his laptop bag and begins wrapping it around his head, blinding himself and removing any doubt about signals. The demonstration continues, even faster now. As quickly as Kat-Yu looks at the card, Dave accurately returns the card. Joe trusts Leon, he considers him a friend, but he is the oddest billionaire or maybe a person on the planet. Has he lost his mind and created some elaborate prank? But for what purpose? Joe asks his sound producer Jamie to get a deck of cards from the green room, a used deck. Dave and Kat-Yu repeat the demonstration. Dave removes the duct tape blindfold and Kat-Yu stands in the hallway unable to view Dave or the room. Joe shuffles the deck provided by Jamie and hands them to Dave, who looks at the first card and instantly Kat-Yu yells 3 of hearts from the hallway. They complete the entire deck as fast as Kat-Yu can call out the deck. Joe is confused, but is starting to believe. After all, he's talked to Leon extensively about BrainLink trademark symbol and the possibility of electronic telepathy. And now Joe might be showing the world the first true and verifiable instance of the phenomenon without using bits and bytes. Or it's bullshit, and Leon's lost his mind. Either way, this will definitely be the biggest podcast of all time. Note to self, make the narration less opinionated. Joe, how is this possible? What else can you do? Kat-Yu, name it, give me a book we have never read and either of us can read it to the other, like a bedtime story. Joe, I'm so fucking confused. Are you hearing his voice in your head? Kat-Yu, no, it's more like a series of thoughts entering my consciousness and somehow I know they are from Dave. Why we are connected, I'm not sure. Joe, how did you and Dave meet in person? Leon interrupts, now we'll have to head back to the farm. After I set up my own SETI detection array, I spent millions of dollars on my search and eventually I found something, a video feed, no audio. Joe, alien? Leon, no, a man alone in a room. Dave. Joe, Dave's an alien. Leon, no, I wish, he's human, we've tested him, so is Cat-U. Joe, okay then, you have a feed of this guy, where's it coming from? Leon, I have no frickin' idea. Joe, you have my attention. Leon smiles, I thought I might. Joe, how do we get to Mars from an unknown video feed? Leon, with great difficulty. Cat-U, and tears. Dave, and laughs. Leon, Dave, and Cat-U break out in laughter. Cat-U, private joke. Joe, we'll come back to that. Leon, I couldn't figure out the source of the video, it's possible someone hacked my array and inserted it, but I doubted that, since I'm one of the greatest coders in the world. Dave, and modest. Joe, Cat-U, and Dave laugh. Leon, we are getting closer. Joe, do you remember that big lawsuit against me a few years ago? Joe, hard not to, no one knows why it was dropped. Leon, it was dropped because of Cat-U. She worked for the company that was suing me, they tried to force her to testify against me and lie about her findings. She refused, told the judge the truth and the lawsuit was thrown out. Unfortunately she was fired. Lost her work permit and was sent back to Hong Kong. Joe, so she saved your ass? Leon, correct, and I was very grateful, but due to the S.E.C. and my other business holdings, to contact and thank Cat-U would have looked inappropriate and opened an investigation. But yes, she saved my ass, however, and more importantly, I was impressed with her ability to analyze data. Cat-U thinks in terms of data, I believe. Cat-U, I don't. Leon continues, but now I'm stuck, I'm rich, I'm famous, all eyes are on me, a half the world hates me, the other half loves or tolerates me. Either way, I don't care about their opinions, I only care about finding out why my array is receiving this feed and I need help to analyze the video. The data. I needed someone I could trust, of impeccable integrity, I needed a Cat-U. Joe, is this a prank? Leon? Is this some elaborate story to fuck with people for whatever reason? A movie idea? Cat-U, I assure you this is no joke, Dave nearly lost his life, I nearly lost my mind, I wish this was fiction. Dave, me too. Joe, fascinating. Leon, as you know Joe, I spent a lot of time alone as a young person, trust does not come easily to me, but I trusted Doug, he never revealed the purpose of the dishes to anyone, not even his hot blonde hockey wife who insisted they keep no secrets. Dave, super hot wife. Leon, regardless, I sent Doug to Hong Kong to track down Cat-U and offer her a job to secretly analyze the video and determine who the man in the images is, or maybe was. Joe, you thought it was a tape? Leon, we had no idea, could have been live, a recording, from another world, dimension, who knows? Joe, a Saskatchewan farmer, hockey player, and your secret agent? Definitely sounds like a movie idea. Leon, something like that. Anyway, Doug found her working in a coffee shop, told her the story, asked for her help, and she agreed. Joe, I think it's time for some whiskey or a joint, this is too much. Cat-U, I don't drink or smoke cannabis. Leon, remember the trouble I got into smoking weed last time? Joe? Dave, I'll have both please. Joe, Cat-U, where did you think the video came from? Joe and Dave have a drink and smoke a blunt as Cat-U continues the story. Cat-U, I had no idea, but it didn't look like an alien world or person, unless of course their world looks just like ours, and I considered that as a possibility, but... Joe, how much of the room could you see? Cat-U, everything, but it was a top-down view, like I was hovering in the center of the room watching Dave through a transparent ceiling. I assumed the camera was in an overhead light. Joe, so what can you do with that sort of feed to analyze it? Cat U, I wrote an AI to track every single activity in the room and built a database of daily events. I named the software MAI, pronounced MAI, which stands for Micro Artificial Intelligence. Then I programmed MAI to specifically capture all the keystrokes on Dave's laptop. Due to the angle of his screen we couldn't view it directly, only the keyboard. This was the only information we could capture that might determine who he was and the purpose of the video. Oh, and by the way, the keyboard was normal and in English, so again, I didn't think it was alien regardless of the unknown video source. Leon, I still considered it for a while. Dave, do I look alien? Joe laughs. Joe, what did you learn? Cat U, almost everything. Dave is a writer and at the time was determined to live his life off his words. Those are his words, not mine. Dave, I did write that. Joe, and your AI, MAI, could determine what he wrote by video of his hands on a keyboard? Cat U, yes, it wasn't perfect at first, sometimes words were wrong or misspelled but it was close enough, it was like I was reading over his shoulder. Leon, think of it like a virus that reads your keystrokes. Joe, oh, so like the old TikTok before Bitter trademark symbol bought it? Leon, exactly, but without permission. Cat U, and without that permission, when Dave started writing in a daily journal or about his past life it became very uncomfortable for me, I realized I was invading his privacy. I no longer felt this could be some sort of previously taped feed, it had to be live. Joe, and Cat U, and I had to assume there was a greater purpose, a reason. Joe, God? Cat U, no, I don't believe in God or anything above human biology / intelligence. However, there was too much in my own past life to not wonder. I spent 6 years in university, I left with a PhD in computer science with my specialty being data analysis. And one decision a few years ago ended my career. I don't believe in God, but maybe fate? Destiny? Karma? Joe, 6 years for a PhD? Leon, and a master's in biology. Joe, so you're a genius, Cat U? Cat U, I'm not a genius, but I do have an excellent memory and when something is out of place my mind seems to stop until I can figure out what, and why. Everything about the video was out of place, I was determined to figure out why, simple as that. However, I was used to working on raw data. Numbers, stats, probabilities, permutations and more, but never a single source of data, and never a person being said source, a human, who had thoughts, feelings, and emotions he was expressing privately to himself through his words. I was essentially reading his innermost thoughts, his mind. Joe looks at Dave sipping his whiskey, all but ignoring the conversation. Joe asks, this doesn't bother you, Dave? Dave, no. Leon, at this point Joe, we are almost 6 months into the data and we still didn't know his last name. He wrote with various last names and we used MAI to try and find someone on the internet who used those names and looked like Dave, but no luck. He had zero internet presence. And then one day that all changed when he set up a Bitter trademark symbol account. It was still a fake name as far as we could tell, but it was a name attached to a public social media account. We finally confirmed the feed was live or at least local to Earth and I had a way to find him. Joe, let me guess, since you own Bitter trademark symbol you looked at his personal information and what, his IP address? Leon, very good Joe, but no, it would be illegal and immoral for me to access any of my users' accounts, but yes I could have. Dave, I would have. Leon, anyway, I didn't have to, Dave had a specific purpose in creating the account, someone pissed him off. Joe, who? Leon, Tim Hortons, the Canadian coffee giant. Cat U continues, I knew he was probably going to Tim Hortons during the day because he often returned with their coffee cups and occasionally a bagel or donut. I could tell you exactly how many times if you like, it's all in the data. Joe, so with one video feed you really could tell almost everything about a person? Cat U, nearly. Anyway, Dave posted a video of an elderly customer being denied the washroom on Canada Day. He was writing at Tim Hortons when the man was denied and Dave filmed the interaction. He believed others would see the injustice and do something about the situation. They did not. Anyway, I'm speaking as if I know his emotions or intentions at the time. I didn't, but I could guess based on his past writings. Dave, she's right, I was pissed off at those fuckers for what they did to that man. Can we show the video? Jamie brings up the video and they all watch a man, a customer actually holding a Tim Hortons cup, being refused the washroom. Dave is instantly pissed off again. For the first time Kat-Yu leans over to Dave and touches his knee. The grimace on his face turns to a smile as he instantly forgets the past emotion. Joe notices the subtle interaction. Do you speak telepathically through touch? Kat-Yu, no. Joe, sorry to get off track, but I have too many questions. Kat-Yu, we'll answer all of them. Joe, okay. Kat-Yu, I'll speed it up. The Tim Hortons video gave us a location, a place to find Dave. I gave that to Leon and he sent his cousin Doug to find Dave at the Tim Hortons and follow him home. Joe, farmer/detective. Leon, exactly, but Doug couldn't find Dave at that Tim Hortons or at any in the area. He spent a week circulating between the stores, but no sign of Dave. Dave, I boycotted those fuckers. Kat-Yu, and he started going to Starbucks. Once he brought a cup home we figured it out and Doug started to hang out at the Starbucks near the Tim Hortons and within 2 days Dave showed up. We found him. Joe, clearly not an alien. Leon, well clearly not from an alien planet. I'm still not sure he's fully human, even though I've had both Dave and Kat-Yu extensively tested and scanned. Both are perfectly normal humans according to my doctors. Kat-Yu, anyway, Doug followed him home, got his address and determined he was living in a boarding house of some sort. Joe, Dave, does it bother you that they are telling this story as if you are not here? Dave, no, they spent 2 years talking behind my back. What difference does this make? Leon, I need to use the washroom. Kat-Yu and Joe, me too. The three leave the room to relieve themselves. Dave smiles and waves at Jamie and then pours himself and Joe another whiskey. The 3 others notice the large pour on their return. Joe to Dave, are you trying to get me drunk? Dave smiles, but doesn't respond. Joe, okay, where were we in this story? How the fuck did you 2 get married and selected for the first 2 humans on Mars? Dave, easy, I blackmailed them both. Leon, not true. I bought the house Dave was living in. Joe, well Doug bought the house, and then I knew everything I need to know, Dave's full name, his age, his past, everything a regular private investigator, not Doug, could find out about him, and who / what we're dealing with. Joe, what did you find out? Kat-Yu, Dave needed help. Leon, we knew Dave had some hearing issues. Sometimes he would wear hearing aids, but not consistently, maybe 4 days in a row and then not at all for a week. It seemed to vary. When Doug finalized the sale and the previous owners were explaining the details on all their tenants, the owner told Doug Dave was basically mute and only communicated by email. Dave, it's not that hard to keep your mouth shut when you don't care what anyone is saying to you. I found email an easier way to live. I had time to think about my responses. It's similar to this situation. I would love to speak to you, Joe. But until I can sync the thoughts in my head with the words that come out of my mouth, I prefer to remain mute. By only speaking words I write, even electronically like we are doing today, I'm confident I'm speaking my truth, my thoughts. But after I've had time to think about them. With Kat-Yu and Leon explaining the basic story, I'm free to think about what I want to say if I do decide to speak. Joe, so physically you can speak fine? Dave, if I'm not reading out loud I sound a bit like I haven't spoken for years, but yes, no physical reason, it's my choice to use a computer. Joe, it worked for Stephen Hawking. Dave, it wasn't his choice, but yes, the voice synthesizer is fine. Kat-Yu, are you ready for the love story, Joe? Joe, please, you're killing me with details. Kat-Yu laughs. Dave, you should see her database. Everyone laughs. Leon, a bit more background. Joe. The house is in Canada, and by coincidence in the same city where Kat-Yu's cousin lived. How lucky. Kat-Yu was able to get a visitor's visa to Canada, so I sent her there, and also by coincidence. Like this was a movie script, not real life. There was an apartment free in the house, so I moved Cat U into the house. It wasn't on the same floor, but it would get Cat U in front of Dave to see if he was completely out of his mind or only partially. Joe, why did you think he was out of his mind? Cat U, because of what he wrote. At times it was normal, a story with a beginning, middle and end. But other times it was all over the place, like he was writing 7 stories at once and none of them made sense. Dave, they made sense to me. Cat U, we know. Dave shrugs his shoulders. Cat U, anyway, we were led to believe he was mute, so I wasn't sure how to approach him. Obviously I can't confront him and say, by the way, I've been watching everything you do in your room for months, are you a bloody alien, or what? Joe, sorry, I have to interrupt you, the comedian in me has an odd question. Was he ever naked in his room? Did you watch him, you know? Sorry to be so blunt, but... Cat U, yes, I saw him naked often. I added an automatic blur filter to the feed to block it out like Japanese porn, but I had already seen his package numerous times previously. However, I wasn't attracted to him or his body. I wanted to figure out where the feed came from, nothing more. Dave, and I jerk off in the shower or in the dark, whichever feels more pathetic on any given day. Joe laughs, Dave smiles. Cat U continues, because of the hearing aids we thought he might be deaf and mute. So I spent a month learning ASL. I figured I could interact with him this way and set my plan in place. MAI would alert me when Dave was preparing to do laundry, and I used this information to bump into Dave in the laundry room. Joe, so you are a secret agent now? Cat U, I wasn't sure what I was, or what I was doing, but after I was confident Dave was in the laundry room, I took my own laundry to the room to meet him. Joe, you are meeting someone you've secretly watched for a year. Cat U, yes, and I'm not an actress or good at lying, but everything I would say to Dave would need to be a lie and he would have to believe me. Joe, this is a bit like an unbelievable movie. Cat U, I understand, I felt the same way often. Nonetheless, the time had come. I went to the laundry room and saw Dave standing in front of a washer, wearing the same hoodie he wore nearly daily since I had been watching the video, and for a split second I froze when he turned around, looked at me, and said hi like it was normal. Dave, I always talk to hot chicks, you never know when there is a chance. Everyone laughs. Cat U is embarrassed and flushes slightly. Cat U, now I was confused. I had expected an ASL conversation at some point, but now I didn't need it. I stumbled through, hi, I'm Cat U, I just moved in. He introduced himself as Dave but didn't give me his last name, which at this point I already knew was Jones, but now had to remember to never let on I knew his name, until he mentioned it first. Leon, Cat U has a photographic memory when it comes to conversations. Joe, what did you talk about? Cat U, not much, he explained the laundry setup to me and then left without engaging me more. Dave, I was playing it cool, hot chicks don't like aggressive guys. Cat U, I'm not your chick. Dave, wife/chick, what's the difference? Cat U, you see what I'm dealing with, Joe? Joe laughs and pours Dave another drink. Dave seems to get funnier under the influence. He joins Dave and then lights up a new blunt to share, offering it to Leon first, who takes it, but passes it to Dave quickly before the camera shows him holding. Cat U, anyway, the ASL was a flop. Dave spoke with ease to me, his voice was quiet and soft, a bit hard to hear, but normal. Leon, sorry to interrupt, but we should also clarify that when Doug bought the house we had a property inspection done. This included all the rooms in the house including Dave's. Joe, you wanted to find the camera. Leon, exactly, we got permission to enter his room and on that day we waited until he took his normal trip to Starbucks and then sent Doug and a fake inspector to search his room physically and electronically for any recording devices, any odd Wi-Fi signals, or any radio signal out of the ordinary. Joe, and you found the camera? Leon, we found nothing, we still didn't know where the feed was originating. Cat U, Dave continued to write, I continued to read everything he wrote. I dutifully sent reports to Leon almost daily, but we were not making any progress. I was forced to use inside information on Dave to get him to open up to me. I knew his father had died recently. Dave didn't like his father's obituary and wrote his own version, which I read and loved. I hoped he would bring it up during one of our laundry room chats, but Dave never mentioned it to me, so I asked him if his parents were still alive one day and he said no, both died when I was a teenager. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't expecting a direct, instant, and solid lie. I was confused. Clearly Dave was open to writing anything, but holding back truths in person. Joe takes a big breath, sighing. Leon, and then we got lucky. Dave, sensing a joke, I got lucky. Katyu raises her eyebrows at Dave and continues, my cousin Mary would visit me at the house on occasion. Dave was pretty much in a routine and there wasn't anything new to try and program with MAI. MAI could basically predict Dave's behavior on any given day with a 95% accuracy. I can show you the data if you like, Joe. Joe grins at the offer. No, that's okay, I believe you. Katyu, alright. Anyway, my cousin is a nurse and wears scrubs often, which will become important in a second. She was visiting one day while Dave was out at Starbucks. I assume it was Starbucks. Dave, it was. Katyu without pause, and by coincidence as she was leaving the house Dave was arriving. Now, my cousin and I look a lot alike. Most people assume we are sisters, not cousins, and some think we are twins. I was walking Mary out of the house when Dave came in and he seemed to take a step back when he saw us. Maybe it was the twin thing. Dave, it wasn't. Joe, what was it, Dave? Dave, cousin Mary is very attractive, stunning really, hard to take your eyes off her like Katyu, and I have a thing for women in uniforms. Katyu, it's apparently his kryptonite. He instantly said hi to me in a different voice and then introduced himself to Mary and shook her hand. We all talked for a few minutes and then Mary said she needed to head home and Dave suggested he walk her to the nearby metro station to be safe. Joe, was the area unsafe? Katyu, no, Doug bought the house for $4 million, all the houses in the area are near the same value and the neighborhood was completely safe. I walked to the metro all the time at night and was never approached or harassed. Joe, I think I see where this is going. Katyu, go ahead. Joe, they hooked up. Katyu, correct, and Mary didn't know what I was doing at the house, my connection to Dave, she thought he was nothing but a housemate. Joe, so Dave got lucky, how did you and Leon get lucky? Katyu, Dave started to talk, well he started to read out loud for hours. I didn't need audio on the feed to know this. I simply watched when he was reading his Kobo and if his lips were moving I could quickly walk by his door in the house and hear him. Which was a risk as I had no reason to be on his floor of the house, but... Joe, why is this significant? Leon, because of his voice we figured he had some sort of medical condition that prevented long conversations. Now we knew it was either a mental health condition, or his personal choice. Plus, he seemed a lot happier after he got laid. Sorry, Katyu. Katyu, no, I agree, he was happier, unfortunately too happy. Joe, what do you mean? Katyu, well he started writing like a madman, someone on a mission. He was writing a story about a benevolent dictator day and night, only stopping for a few hours of sleep. Dave smiling, I still like that story. Joe, Dave, do you want to tell this story? I don't mind the electronic voice. Dave, no thanks, I like Kat's version better. Joe, wouldn't they be the same? Dave, overall, yes, but my approach isn't as PC as Kat's and Leon's. Katyu, the problem, Joe, and what we haven't discussed yet is Dave was diagnosed with ADHD just days before entering the house and was taking Adra on a regular basis. However, he was also using cannabis and mushrooms on occasion. Joe laughing, the drug hat trick. Sorry, it's the only Canadian hockey humor I know. Katyu, yes, unfortunately he ended up in the penalty box, the hospital. Joe, OD. Katyu, in a sense, but not directly. By this time I could pretty much watch every word he typed in real time, and the story was okay, not his best work, but it was interesting and funny. Dave, be honest, it was fucking brilliant. Katyu sighs, she knows she has about 30 minutes or less until the booze in Dave's system fully kicks in and he takes over the conversation, but Kat knows how to shut down Dave. Well then publish it. Dave, when I'm ready. Kat, after day 3 he only had about 6 hours total sleep and didn't seem like he was going to let up. Until now Dave had either taken the correct amount of Adra or maybe double, but MAI had no record of anything more. Now however he started taking them throughout the day. 6 or 7 times the dose. He stopped sleeping, instead when tired he would take a cold shower and go back to work. I knew this was not good. The human body needs sleep, and when Leon and I talked about it we decided to intervene. Joe, how? Kat, again, we got lucky. Not with sex this time, but eventually Dave got hungry. He hadn't eaten for days, only energy drinks. Dave, Joe, what she is not telling you for some reason is I was also opening the Adra capsules and snorting them for a greater hit. But to be fair I didn't notice much difference with the snorting. Kat, at this point I'm ready to call 911 and get a mental health check done. But I had no reason that I could share with the police. He wasn't harming anyone else in the house or causing an issue other than using the showers every few hours. And since I didn't live on his floor, how could I tell the police I knew this? I couldn't. I was stuck watching a man possibly overdose in front of my eyes. Kat, and then as I was about to call 911 regardless, MAI alerted me when he left the house without shoes and started walking towards 7/11. By this time Doug was at the house with me trying to determine a reason he could call the cops as the owner. But we were unable to find one until Dave left. Walking down the street with no shoes is enough for an anonymous call to the police, which is what we did. Dave, they ratted me out. Kat, we saved your life. Dave, debatable, but... Kat, Dave was picked up outside of 7/11 sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk. He was unresponsive to the police, so they took his wallet, found his address, and brought him home where Doug was waiting for them. When they arrived, Doug met them in the driveway and introduced himself as the house owner. The police asked if Dave lived there, and when Doug said yes, they let Dave go and he went back into the house and his room. Dave, you are missing the funny parts. Kat, it's not a funny story. Dave, matter of opinion. Dave and Kat begin talking in their minds. Until this point they resisted their secondary telepathic conversation, not wanting to be impolite to Joe and his listeners, but Dave with a few whiskeys begins to open the connection to Kat, a type of telepathic drunk dialing. Dave tells Kat, tell the embarrassing parts and people will remember. Kat responds, fine. Go ahead, dear. Dave, Joe, when I was in the back of the car handcuffed, yes, Kat missed that part too. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, I barely knew who I was or where. But I did know I wanted to be out of the car and the handcuffs. When the one officer was outside talking to Doug, the other was in the driver's seat waiting, and for some reason I figured I could hypnotize her into letting me go, so I looked her dead in the eyes and said, I love you, I love you, I love you. At which point, for some reason she got out of the car, let me out, and removed the cuffs, but she did hold onto my arm until Doug confirmed with the other officer that I did indeed lie there. Joe, mushrooms, eh? Dave, exactly, although it was cannabis and Adra, not mushrooms. Joe, yes, edibles. Dave, exactly. Kat, by now we had our own cameras all over the house and I was watching all of this from my room. I couldn't believe the police let him go. However, Doug was able to tell them about the showers and added a few exaggerations, forcing the police to call for a mental health check. The paramedics came, they tried to talk to him, he was lying in his bed at his point awake, but unable or refusing to speak. Dave, maybe a bit of both, can't really remember. Joe, they took him /you. Joe no longer knows who to address. Kat, yes. Dave, cunts. Joe, who? Dave, the paramedics. One large guy kept tapping and pushing hard on my chest plate with his fingers. It hurt like hell, but I couldn't move my arms to push him away and I couldn't speak to tell him to fuck off. And that was the last memory I had for a week. Kat begins to tear up. Joe asks if she's okay. Leon, I'll take the story from here. Dave, No, it's okay, I'll take it. Kat, take a break. Kat gets up, reaches her hand out to Dave and he gives her an odd low high-five type grab as she leaves the room. Dave, this is harder on her than me, Joe. She blames herself when she should be proud of her actions. Joe, I can only imagine. Dave, I don't remember much about the first week. I have a faint memory of being in the and lying in a bed, but then I woke up in a hospital room what felt like the next day, but in reality it was 6 days later. I slept nearly that entire time according to medical records. Apparently I woke up for a few hours a day and talked to a few psychiatrists, but I have no idea what I said. Joe, it wasn't in the medical reports. Dave, it was, but I haven't fully read them, I don't want to know. Joe, why? Dave, it wasn't me who said those words, I remember nearly everything I say. Not always word for word like Kat, but often close. Whoever was speaking, it wasn't Dave. Joe, who was it? Dave, no idea, maybe my subconscious. Joe, maybe the weed gods. Dave laughing, maybe, except I was sober, but either way, when I woke up and realized where I was, a psych ward, I was pissed off. Why was I here? How did I get here? And where the fuck is this hospital located, because I don't recognize the name and I don't recognize the view from my window. I could see mountains, but none were familiar. I asked to be released so I could go home, and when they refused and told me they could keep me under a Section XXX 123 law, note to self, look up real law, I got really pissed, angry. Joe, probably not the behavior they would release you on. Dave, correct. Dave, now comfortable, pours another drink and splashes a taste in a glass for Leon. He reluctantly accepts and the three of them clink glasses before Dave continues typing rapidly on his computer. Joe wonders if he's on Adra now. Dave continues, at this point they had me on antipsychotic medication and Benzedrine, Benny's, a favorite of Jack Kerouac, you know. Regardless, when they saw the change in personality they increased the Benzedrine to calm me down. I don't know if you've ever taken Benny's, but for me they feel like the perfect amount of edibles, relaxing but no wild edible thoughts or hallucinations. When they hit my system I took a breath and figured out a plan. Joe, can I ask why they were holding you? What was the diagnosis? Dave, well, I tried to find out at the time but they wouldn't give me my file without a Freedom of Information, FOI, request. But when you are in the psych ward there is no way to make a FOI request. Coincidence? But when I did get the records later and the only diagnosis was David was in a catatonic state. Which is basically bullshit and could mean anything. Kat re-enters the room. Dave, my plan was simple, Joe, I was going to act my way out of the hospital. But first I needed a clear head and I was sure that antipsychotic meds were the source of my confusion. So I stopped taking them, I did exactly what they show in the movies. I pretended to take the pill and then spit it out in the toilet once the nurse left. They didn't do the open your mouth thing. Joe, and that worked? Dave, eventually. The next morning I woke up angrier than ever about my situation. I walked up to the nurse's station and demanded my file. They refused to get a supervisor. They refused me access to the internet or a phone so I could contact someone about my situation. They owned me. I was so pissed at this point I must have looked like a madman. I walked back to my room and on the way I saw a fire alarm and I pulled it, setting off a piercing siren. I then sat in a chair outside of my room and waited. Maybe now they'll give me the file. Joe, did they? Dave, no, 5 security guards and one nasty bitch of a nurse surrounded me. She asked me why I pulled the alarm and I said I didn't. It was on the CCTV of course, so they knew, but at this point it was a game for me, 5 guards for a pulled alarm. She continued to try and get me to admit, I continued to refuse. And then? Dave pauses, shakes his hands to release the tension and continues, she, the bitch, started to threaten me with the quiet room, which I had no idea what that was. In some ways it sounded peaceful, but considering the source, I assumed it was not, and at this point I said nothing more. I stared directly at her eyes and showed no emotion, made no facial movements. It was enough to push her buttons. She went back to the nurse's station while the 5 guards kept me surrounded. When she returned, 2 of the guards grabbed my arms and started to lead me to the quiet room. I didn't struggle, but I didn't make it an easy walk. I was ready to fight physically. Joe, shit. Dave, yes indeed I was in the shit now. Anyway, the room was not a quiet room, it was a cell, almost exactly like a prison cell, but worse. A dirty mattress on the floor, no pillow, sheet, or a blanket. And one of those combination toilet forward/sinks, again straight from the movers. The guard threw me on the mattress and began to take off my clothes. I was wearing my street clothes at the time. But apparently the rules are that I needed to be in hospital garb, so they forcibly removed my clothes and dressed me in patient scrubs. They also may have given me a shot of something in my ass, I remember a needle, but who knows, either way, now I really was in jail. Both in my mind and physically. Joe, Jesus. Dave, indeed, I wish he was there to help me. At one point I called out for God's help, but that cunt didn't show up. Dave stops typing and stares at his screen, not moving. Cat, are you okay? Dave, yes. A few hours later a psychiatric nurse and 3 guards returned to the cell. I spoke to her for a while but remember nothing of the conversation. All I could do was stare at her socks. They were 2 different socks, same colors, but different patterns. However, whatever I said must have worked and they let me out an hour later. When I got back to my room and was sure they were not around, I slammed my bathroom door so hard it almost came off its hinges. It's clear now that Dave is reliving the experience and Cat wants him to stop. He doesn't. Dave, after the door, the anger left me, everything left me except determination. I would get out of that fucking place in days even if I had to sneak out. But first I put my acting hat on. I apologized to the nurse the next day, even though I didn't mean it. I still hate that bitch today even though she was only following policy. Over the next 3 days I was a model patient on the outside, and furious on the inside. I did as they asked, pretended to take my medication. And eventually was able to convince the doctor everything was okay. I told him the medication was working. Which is really all any doctor and especially psychiatrists wants to hear. Once the pills work their fucking job is done. It worked, and the prick let me go home. Joe, how bad was it? The psych ward? Dave, physically it was nice, a newer facility. I had my own large room and washroom, 3 meals a day, lots of snacks, TV, video games, a few distractions. But no internet or phone or computer, my lifelines. But when I was being dragged into the quiet room and saw it, all I could think of was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Joe, fuck me Jack Nicholson. Cat rejoins the conversation. In the meantime Doug and I searched his room again, looking for a source of the video or anything. We found nothing, so Leon suggested I take a copy of his hard drives. I had Dave's passwords, so I did. Joe, how did that help? Cat until then I could only read what he wrote in the room, now I had everything he wrote in the last 5 years to review. Well, for my and I to review. Joe, what did you find out? Cat everything, if you believe what he wrote. He wrote about his entire life from age 7 to present, his life story. I now knew everything about his past. Dave, snooper. Joe, everything? Cat yes, I could tell you his first crush, girlfriend, the night he lost his virginity, with who he lost it, which neighboring town she was from, everything. Joe, it's mind reading without permission. Cat unfortunately. Joe, why? Dave, she feels guilty Joe, but there is no need, she did what she needed to do regardless of me giving her permission. None of it matters Joe, we don't have the answers as to why we can communicate via whatever means, brain waves, gravity waves, alien chips in our heads, whatever, it doesn't matter. When this podcast is broadcast our lives are over. Joe, why? Dave, Joe, if even 20% of your viewers believe this story, what will happen? Joe, the internet will go nuts. Dave, yes, and who are they going to investigate the most? Leon is already under a microscope and was barely able to keep this secret. If it wasn't for Cousin Doug I could still be in that room. But Leon is used to that exposure. I'm a nobody, Joe. Cat-U is an attractive, beautiful, wonderfully kind genius, so I think our names will be Googled and every part our past lives exposed to the world. Stories about my first fuck are the least of my worries when the internet starts to make up conspiracy theories. Their problem though, I'll be on Mars with Cat-U and by the time Leon sends the next participants, every story/theory about our pasts will be considered real by someone somewhere on Earth. And the fucked up part is I don't care, I'll gladly share anything, write about anything, discuss anything. Does it really make a difference in the end? Joe, I know there is a reason for all of this and why Leon picked you two to go to Mars, but I'm still questioning the reality of telepathy in my mind. Cat-U, as did I. As I still do, daily, hourly. Dave and Cat-U talk telepathically. Dave thinks Cat-U should explain her reverse evolution theory, RET. It explains how at one point humans had an organ or body modification that allowed telepathy. Cat-U tells Dave I'm not ready yet, we need more MRIs. Now please let me continue, we'll talk later. Dave grins at Cat-U, he loves it when she grinds his gears. Cat-U, I'm almost there. When Doug and I searched his room the second time I looked at Dave's Kobo. I already knew which books he had downloaded. Well, Ma knew and provided me a list, but I didn't know for sure if he read all of them, so I snooped through the device. Joe, what did you find? Cat-U, every book I looked at was either on the first chapter, a chapter near the middle, or the end. At first I thought this was a coincidence, but once Dave and I actually talked, I found out he only reads those 3 chapters of any book. Joe to Dave, why? Dave, for most books it's all you need. The author had a reason to write the book. I trust the author, I trust the publisher believes it's truthful enough to be printed as non-fiction without getting sued. From there anyone can determine the point of the book by reading those 3 chapters, as well as any introductions, summaries, appendixes, and the index if there is one. Flowery forwards by famous people also add to the possible authenticity, as they too don't want to be associated with the fringe. Joe, and this works. Dave, think of your friend Graham Hancock and his body of work, both fiction and non-fiction, depending on who reads it. I assume archaeologists consider all of his books fiction? But my point is you understand /trust Graham, yes? At a level greater than a friend even? Joe, yes. Dave, and if you read the summary of his next non-fiction book on some new archaeology find that he believes is older than anything before, do you have to read the entire book to agree with the hypothesis in the first chapter? Joe, no, but I probably will because I enjoy his writing and the details about the discovery. Dave, understood. However, I don't care about the details, or the author, they are not my friends. I only care the theory. Reading is repetitive and bores me. Plus I'm not looking to debate or argue these theories, only absorb them for my own use. Then maybe one day I'll be in a conversation like this and I can pull a reference out of my ass from some obscure book from the 1900s. Dave pulls out a pack of cigarettes, offers one to everyone else, only Joe accepts. The 2 light up. Cat-U, one of the books he read to the end and often was about telepathy. It was a novel obviously, until now no one has been able to prove true telepathy. Joe, and you 2, or 3 can. Leon, yes, without a doubt. Once we confirmed the connection, and after we convinced David this was all real, I got to work on the science side. However, all my resources are in the USA. I have access to any medical device you can imagine, but I needed Cat-U and Dave in the USA. Joe, so we are skipping ahead? Leon, a bit. We can return to that part of the story. I think it's better if Dave explains the first contact portion. It's not aliens, Joe. Joe, okay. Leon, skip ahead almost a year, Joe. Cat-U and Dave are now married, making Cat-U a Canadian citizen, and together they are now allowed to enter the USA without a work visa for Cat-U, now Cat Jones technically, although no one calls her that. I'm not even sure why everyone always uses her last name U, but we do. Cat-U, blame Dave for the U business. Leon, anyway, it was also long enough after the lawsuit, so if someone made the connection between me and Cat U it wouldn't matter. Especially since that company went out of business for fraud. But as you know, my life is under an electron microscope and a movie in the making regardless of telepathy. Dave goes to the washroom while Leon continues. I put them both through the astronaut training program, which includes more medical and psychological tests and scans that you could imagine. However, I only cared about one, their EEGs. Their brainwaves. We had them both wear 24-hour monitoring devices for weeks. We did the car demonstration thousands of times and with various variables. Not only can they do the trick in the same room blindfolded or whatever, they can do this demonstration halfway around the world. Which we tested by sending Cat U home to visit her mother. While there the connection was no different, according to the data. Joe, and the data said what? Leon, it showed that a secondary connection between them exists. During the demonstration, when one looks at the card they create a pattern in both of their heads, nearly identical every time. Cat U, within 99%. Leon, and the second the pattern shows up in one brain it shows up in the other instantly. How, we don't know. Dave returning from the washroom, or do we? Joe, you know something? Dave, no, I'm just fucking around, I'm as clueless as everyone else. Leon, other mammals have this capability, although it's through sonar which we can detect. However, we can't detect any sonar coming from or being received by either Dave or Cat U. Dave, this is my point about books, Joe. You trust Leon, yes? Joe, yes. Dave, but this is hard to believe, isn't it? Joe, yes. Dave, so do you need a book filled with data to believe us? Which, by the way, we brought on a hard drive for you. Every MRI, CT scan, blood test, EEG, weightless training results, G-force simulator, psychological exams, everything. It would take you a year to read. Or you can simply believe that Leon has done his homework before coming on your show and possibly destroying his entire empire, or when the world believes this is all some sort of elaborate prank for whatever reason. And I could think of a few reasons to fuck with the world. Joe, like? Dave, revenge. Cat U, he's kidding. Leon, how about one last demonstration? Jamie, can you take Dave or Cat U, your choice, out of the building and tell them about anything you like? Joe, Jamie, do you mind? Jamie, not at all. Jamie picks Dave and they go outside. Jamie talks to Dave about his obsession with golf, and simultaneously as he speaks Cat U repeats Jamie's words. Word for word inside the studio. They return. Joe tells Jamie what he talked about and Jamie confirms. Jamie then reviews the video of Cat U speaking as himself and confirms it's at least 99% accurate. Jamie, I'm starting to believe. But how do we know it's not some new secret BrainLink trademark symbol technology? Leon, we can look at their recent brain scans, and if you like we can go after the podcast and get 2 new MRIs to show there are no implants. Cat U, can we get back to the books for a minute and the psych ward? It explains the origin of the cards. Joe, please do. Cat U, after the psych ward Dave was sent to another psychiatrist who performed a complete examination, every test in the book, ADHD, autism, bipolar, sociopath, psychopath, everything, including an IQ test. Joe, and Cat U, well, on the mental health side, Dave was diagnosed with various conditions including ADHD, autism, bipolar, and schizophrenic, but Joe, but Dave, but I lied on all of the mental health tests, I wanted those diagnoses. Joe, why? Dave, I was about to become homeless, street homeless, I was on welfare and it was enough for a room, but not enough for food or life. I couldn't work with the tinnitus, I was unable to focus on coding databases with a loud ringing in my ears 24/7, and I couldn't find a doctor to fill out a disability application for tinnitus. With these additional diagnoses I was approved for medical disability and my monthly payment was doubled, enough to live on. Barely, but enough to give me a break. I tried to consider it universal income, not welfare. Joe, and the IQ test? Dave, I didn't fake it, I tried my best, except the memory portion. The pretty young lady giving me the test had a very soothing voice, and in the memory portion she would ask me to repeat a list of numbers back to her, sometimes asking me to sort them in an order. For some reason it was like her last words were the only words I've ever heard in my head. Eventually this list was getting long. I thought, shit, I don't want the test to show a high memory, and I purposely tapped out, so to speak. Joe, why? Dave, I was afraid if it showed a high memory I would lose the benefits, my only source of income. Leon adds, the results were inconclusive. On some areas Dave was off the chart, both high and low. All of the language and visual test results were high, as well as current events, but others like math were low. A good example is, reading comprehension was in the 98th percentile, but his spelling level was at a grade 7 level. Joe, can you explain why? Dave, I can. Leon, not now. Dave wants to explain how his spelling level is significantly higher when he types on a computer, even without using spell check, how muscle memory affects physical memory, about how he could ace that fucking test if he was in front of a keyboard, not holding a pen. Instead he allows Leon to drone on. Joe notices that both Leon and Katyu tend to stop Dave at times, like they are holding him back from telling some long inconsequential story that has nothing to do with their intended purpose on the Joe Rogan Experience. Joe wouldn't mind a side story, but also notices the seriousness of Leon's demeanor. Katyu, his memory scores, this is what started the card demonstration. Dave started reading about people who have photographic memories and how they can memorize a deck of cards in seconds, some took a minute. Dave believed he could do the same and started to practice. I watched him for hours shuffling a deck, spreading it out, attempting to memorize, and then testing himself, flipping over one card at a time. Joe to Dave, how did you do? Dave, I sucked at first, but once I could get the first 5 cards, then it was only a matter of increasing that number 1 per day, and in a couple of months I figured I would be able to do the whole deck. Which is what I did, and it worked. In 2 months I taught myself to memorize a deck perfectly. Joe, but that's not unusual. Katyu, agreed, it's a skill, not telepathy, or so I thought as I watched Dave perform this trick for hours. When Dave spread out the cards I would see them on my screen and attempt the same memorization feat as him. Joe, let me guess, you can memorize a deck too? Katyu, no. Well maybe, but not by myself. Joe, what do you mean? Dave, I'll explain. Joe. I'm not proud of this, but I hated being on disability. I knew if I could relieve some financial stress in my life I could once again either write or code, but I needed money. Joe, unsure where Dave is heading, okay. Dave, I hated the handout, to me it was a failure. I was determined to earn a living again, by any means possible, including gambling. Joe, card counting? Dave, no, side bets. I went to the casino, made some friends, and then bet them I could memorize a deck of cards in a minute or less. The first guy I bet $100, which was about half my remaining food budget for the month, and I failed. I didn't get past card 5, they laughed at me. Joe, why? Dave, no clue, at home I had this perfected, I assumed it was nerves, so I had a beer and tried again, this time $50 just in case. Joe, and you lost again? Dave, I did, 7 cards, better, but still I ate ramen noodles the rest of the month, just like the movers. I could have gone to the food bank, but again, pride decided against that action. Joe, I don't care if this story is bullshit now, you've got me hooked, what happened next? Dave, I continued to practice, took $200 from my next disability check and tried again, this time at a different casino, but still no luck. 10 cards was my maximum, in public. I gave up. I couldn't afford to test it any longer. But that night on my return home I ran into Kat and we talked a bit. I didn't tell her what I was doing but decided to pretend a bet with her, which she agreed to. Katyu, Dave said, do you want to see a card trick? I knew where he was headed, and I watched him learn this trick. I internally reminded myself to act surprised when he succeeded. Dave, Kat shuffled, I spread the cards out on a table and memorized them. I asked Kat to pick up the first card and focus on the card. I was pretending this was some sort of mind-reading trick as a backup for failing, but I didn't need it. I got the entire deck right and Kat pretended to be amazed. Kat, you, grinning, my acting skills were improving. Leon, the short story, Joe, is that Dave was never memorizing the entire deck. Every time he was successful, Kat, you was watching. They were connecting telepathically and neither knew or understood why. Joe, who figured it out? Kat, you, Leon. Leon, no, I had a clue and started the process. I told Kat you to keep practicing with Dave every time he asks, but to find opportunities to reshuffle the deck without him seeing. She did this and Dave continued to memorize the entire deck after the secret shuffle. At this stage, telepathy of some sort was the only explanation. But then Dave caught Kat you reshuffling. She wasn't doing it every time, but when he caught her he didn't say anything. Kat you, I got cocky, I'm not a magician. Dave, it worked out perfectly. Joe, why? Dave, I was nearing the same conclusion. I thought maybe it had something to do with the house and being comfortable in my environment, but I tried the trick on a different housemate and once again couldn't reach double digits. I assumed this was the average human limit. So why perfection with Kat you? Joe, aliens. Everyone laughs. Dave, I wish. No, when I caught her reshuffling I was silent, but I looked into her eyes as if to say, I think I know what you are doing. Kat you, and those are the exact words I heard in my head. Not in Dave's voice, only thoughts. Joe, is this where you fell in love? Dave, who says we are in love? Joe, you are married, I assumed. Kat you, this is where we both walked away from each other, and returned to our rooms without saying another word, as if our ability to speak verbally ceased at that moment. Dave, noticed how she skipped over the love question. Joe? Kat you, I'm getting there, have another cigarette. Dave acts like it's an order from Kat you and obeys. Joe, okay, so now it's not cards, it's words. Kat you, exactly. The cards were always random, how could either of us know? The feat to memorize a deck is within everyone's capabilities, right Leon? Leon, yes, I was able to do it as well. It took about a month to learn a memorization technique. Joe, so you go back to your rooms and start telepathing or whatever the type of communication would be called. Jamie, can you Google that? Kat you, I think it's just telepathy. And no, we didn't start communicating. I called Leon and Doug. I was worried Dave might lose his mind again and watched the feed to his room. Joe, you continue to watch the video feed even with my? Kat you, unfortunately yes, when it felt like an emergency, or so I thought when Dave removed the bag of magic mushrooms from his nightstand. Joe, oh shit, Dave was looking for answers. Joe laughs. Dave smiles and pours them another drink. Kat you sighs, she still has to deal with Dave the rest of the night and get him to kill Tony. Joe, now looking direct into Dave's eyes, asks, did you find the answers? Dave smiles. Dead silence. Joe, nothing more? No story by any of you? The room remains silent for a second and then Kat you states, he won't say. Dave smiles again, holds back a laugh while looking at Joe before they break out in laughter as if Kat you told the greatest joke in the world for the first time. Leon and Kat you smile, but realize this is some sort of inside psychedelic joke. Joe, what drugs have you taken, Dave? If you don't mind me asking. Dave, nearly everything except DMT. Joe, heroin. Dave, its cousin, morphine. Joe, LSD. Dave nods, and then remembers it's a podcast and responds with, yes. Joe, and your biggest dose of mushrooms? Dave, 10g of penis envy magic mushrooms. Joe laughs, why that variety? Dave, I read an article where a person took a bunch and their tinnitus went away permanently. The story also noted that variety is one of the strongest available. Jamie has been fact-checking everyone as they speak and interjects, exactly what Google says. Joe, 10g wasn't your first trip though? Dave, no, I worked my way up. At 3G I managed to get near complete relief from the noise for a few hours, but it would return when the shrooms left my system. So I did what any normal sane person with no mental health issues would do. Joe, you increased the dose. Dave, was there any other option? Next, 6 grams would give me nearly 6 hours of relief, but would only work every third or fourth day. I couldn't take it daily or it seemed to have no effect. Joe, not exactly microdosing. Dave, which I also tried, but I have an addict's brain, I need that noticeable change in thoughts or body sensations. Joe, which brings me to the next question, weren't you tripping balls with visuals? Dave, no, I took it at night and timed it so I would fall asleep near the end of the trip. For the first time in years I could get to sleep without music, white noise, or booze. Dave takes a breath before resuming his typing. Now he's looking at the others while he types /speaks, and I have a theory about visuals and psychedelics. Well, at least mushrooms. Joe, what's your theory? Dave, it's programmable, the trip, or at least adjustable by changing the environment where you take them. Joe, why? Dave, because by taking them at night and alone in my room I did experience visuals at first. There was painting in my room I would stare at for hours while listening to music. The colors were amazing, as you know, the scene was in 3D, like Super 3D, it was a standard trip, fun, entertaining, etc. But as I continued eventually I got bored with the animation so to speak, and although I could go to a park in the daytime and experience more of the same, I didn't see the point. I wasn't in need of entertainment. Like you said, I was looking for answers and I believed the visuals were a way to avoid finding them. If you are tripping balls it can be extremely enjoyable visually, but at the end of the day it's only entertainment if you get nothing else out of it. Joe, did you find the answers? Dave, you already asked that. Joe laughing, I know. Dave, I couldn't afford 6 grams twice a week, I couldn't really afford any mushrooms so I took the plunge, the heroic 10-gram dose. Which by the way I think we need a better name than heroic. Joe, like? Dave, idiotic. Everyone laughs, especially Cat U, who Joe notices is once again holding back tears, why he's unsure. Dave, like I said earlier I've never done DMT, I would have if I had access, but I didn't, but I wonder if my 10-gram trip was similar because like before I took them at night, but this time the mushrooms hit more like morphine. Joe, how? Dave, at a certain point you know you have enough and that your body is going to sleep, a wave of comfort flushes your body. I've experienced something similar on high-dose edibles, but again, it's not the same as morphine. Dave, anyway, when the 10-gram hit it kicked my ass, locked me on the bed and sent me somewhere, for I have no idea how long, and no I'm not going to talk about that experience, but when I woke up the tinnitus was gone, like absolutely gone, it was so quiet I thought maybe I was dead. Joe, like an edible overdose? Dave, exactly, that feeling of death, except I was awake, wide fucking awake and the world was in 16K clarity, you know what it's like. Joe, I do. Dave, but in the moment I knew this was different than edibles, those trips you feel foggy or asleep, I was fucking awake. Or I thought I was awake but I needed to know for sure so I went downstairs where my roommate was watching TV and started up a conversation. It was completely normal except all I could focus on was the silence between his words. I would pause and enjoy it for a second before responding. Joe, your roommate didn't notice you were tripping balls. Dave, no, and that told me something, it was a clue, a hint. I went back to my room, enjoyed the silence. The next day my roommate said nothing out of the ordinary. Joe, and the tinnitus? Dave, returned in a few days. Joe, fuck. Dave, but it's nearly gone now. Cat U and Leon return. Joe misses that Dave just mentioned a cure for tinnitus, a condition affecting millions around the world and without a cure leaves individuals with a feeling of desperation and pointlessness. Leon, now what do you think, Joe? Joe, I have no idea. Leon, welcome to my world the last few years. Cat U, and my nightmare, temporary. Joe, okay, so how do we get to marriage? Love. Note to self, happy smiley, insert some reason / way for Katyu and Dave to get over the fact that she's spied on him for the past 2 years and somehow they can now look each other in the eye and speak. Find a reason where it would be okay to allow someone to anonymously monitor your life, your thoughts, your actions and not hate them at the end for the invasion of privacy. Add more of Dave's and Katyu's backstories, find some common event in the past to have them feel special / unique / odd. Maybe they start talking in their dreams and eventually realize what's happening, or maybe one day Dave just takes a chance and says, Katyu, can you read my fucking mind? Because I think you can and it's driving me fucking nuts. Or maybe Dave leaves the house and rents an Airbnb, Katyu and Leon lose the feed. Dave sends Katyu an email, tells her the whole story from his perspective. If it's true they can communicate, he asks her to meet him at the train station. Katyu accepts the invite. They take the train back and forth across Canada until they can figure out this connection between them, the purpose, the reason. They fall in love during the trip and decide to share their miracle with humanity, even though most likely they'll be laughed off the stage. Note to self, figure it out later, I'm sick of this story. Joe, well I agree, that is one hell of a love story, again almost movie-like, fuck The Notebook. But how does that get us to Mars? Well, Katyu and Dave to Mars? No offense, but you both are computer programmers, wouldn't it be wise to send a previous astronaut? Or a scientist of some sort? Soil / air specialist, an engineer, anyone with experience with isolation? Dave, isolation? I spent 3 years alone in a room. No, I wasn't alone on another planet, but I might as well have been, and when we go to Mars we'll be almost constantly under watch anyway, probably live if I know Leon. Leon wants to interject that there is a 3-minute delay from Mars, but holds back the information. Joe, understood, but I'm thinking of the mission itself. Neil Armstrong was a pilot, not a coder. Katyu, but Margaret Hamilton's Apollo code put Armstrong on the moon. Joe, agreed, she isn't celebrated like she should be, but what is the correlation? Are you the next Margaret, Katyu? Leon cuts off Katyu's response. Joe, I'm sending Katyu, Dave, and 50 of my latest human androids, the Mars One trademark symbol model. If there wasn't a 3-minute communications delay to Mars I would only send androids. But for what we are building we need boots on the ground who can instruct the androids instantly as if they are humans, showing them hands-on what we need them to do, from clearing rocks to assembling shelters. They will be robot slaves. And I know I shouldn't make that analogy. But I'm in so much trouble on bitter trademark symbol as it is. What's one more shitstorm? Joe, it's the singularity. Dave, Adam and Eve. Katyu blushes. Leon, no, 2 humans who have found a way to communicate telepathically. Which is the main reason, Katyu and Dave can program together through telepathy faster than 20 of my regular coders. I don't care how they do the telepathy. Joe, why are they so fast? Dave, I'm good at finding her errors. Katyu, bugs. Dave, mistakes. Leon, never mind. But yes, Katyu writes superior code, but when a buggy situation occurs Dave seems to be able to point it out quickly, as if he was waiting for her to make the bug. Dave, error. Leon, together they are the best is all I know, and because they can communicate anywhere without electronic devices, radio failure isn't even possible between them. Plus with the speed they solve issues they can reprogram an android quicker than sending the request back to Earth. Joe, you are sending brains not brawn. Leon, yes, and of course I'll be criticized to no end, but I don't care. The mission to Mars is funded by me and the profits from my companies. It's my ship and my choice. Joe, why don't you go as well, Leon? Leon, what if there is another Dave and Katyu on Earth? What if they are only the beginning of a new form of communication? What if I have another video feed to analyze? Joe, do you? Leon slowly, no, but if this is possible without BrainLink trademark symbol, imagine what will be possible when BrainLink trademark symbol is fully functional. Dave changes the subject. How much longer until we have to leave for Kill Tony? Joe, had enough of this podcast? Dave, I know the odds of being pulled out of Tony's bucket. I don't want to miss a chance. Joe, understood, don't worry, I'll get you there on time. How does your act work with Cat-U? Dave, I write something about a funny situation that happened to me last week and she narrates it while I act it out. Joe, like a mime? Dave, no, mimes are dumb, like how it really happened. Leon, mimes scare me. Dave, I have no idea if it will work or not, we've practiced but never performed on stage. Doesn't really matter, I'm sure Tony will ask if we have any special skills after the set and then the card demonstration should freak him out. Joe, are you going to tell him it's telepathy? Dave, no, I'll tell him to watch this podcast to figure it out. Joe decides to end the podcast there. If Dave manages to get picked, Joe doesn't want him hammered on his podcast and blow his first chance on stage. Joe, why don't we end for the day, relax, go to kill Tony, see what happens and then if we choose we can resume this discussion tomorrow. Everyone agrees, the cameras are turned off. Joe, Leon, is this real? Leon, absolutely. Dave, test us any way you like, use your own doctors, Leon will pay for it, right Leon? Leon, I've paid for everything else including a multi-million-dollar home for you and Cat-U that you don't use, so sure, why not? Dave, do you see why it's called bitter trademark symbol, Joe? That evening Dave is indeed pulled from Tony's bucket, their act kills on stage. It's so funny, Tony keeps them rolling at the 1 minute mark and by the 2 minute mark the set is done. The crowd is standing on their feet, a star is born. The trio return to the JRE studios the next day. Cat-U and Dave finish the love story portion of the interview. Joe and Leon are in tears by the end of their story. Joe publishes parts 1 and 2 of the historic podcast on a Friday the 13th, Leon's idea. The internet explodes, everyone assumes both Joe Rogan and Leon Smuck have gone insane or are playing an elaborate prank with Dave and Cat-U being actors. Leon ignores the world and blasts the telepathic lovers off to Mars. Dave will be the correspondent back the world, with Cat-U as the brains of the operation. Although the world knows they are married, Dave and Cat-U managed to keep one secret to themselves, they never revealed to anyone they chose not to consummate the marriage on Earth. The world obviously assumed they had. One look at Cat-U and how could anyone hold back their physical desires? Her long silky hair alone was enough to set Dave's heart on fire. But Dave, always looking for a bestseller, thought it would be a better story to wait until they reached Mars, and Cat-U agreed. Not only would they be the first humans to have intercourse on Mars, it would be their first time for them as well. And if Cat-U gets pregnant that first time, it would be the ultimate hat trick scored by the cosmos. The day they land on Mars, the entire world is watching. Leon had previously sent hundreds of drone ships loaded with supplies. Ironically, it's an image similar to the satellite dishes still perched on Cousin Doug's farm. Cat-U and Dave's ship, named the Blue Bomber, lands perfectly, textbook. Leon breathes a sigh of relief, naming a ship bomber is not a good story ending for a movie or in real life. Leon waits for confirmation that Dave and Cat-U are safe and then announces to the world the source of the secret video, the rest of Cat-U and Dave's secret telepathic love story. Meanwhile on Mars, Dave and Cat-U fuck their brains out. Leon expects them to stop consummating eventually, but 3 hours later he gives up, tells the press they'll continue the news conference tomorrow at the same time. This should be enough for Cat-U and Dave to get it out of their system. The possible endings. Leon doesn't know the source of the video. Dave and Cat-U go to Mars but are stranded when the world economy collapses. Thankfully, they brought a ton of sperm and eggs with them, and although it's uncomfortable for Dave to perform artificial insemination on Cat-U with another man's sperm, he has no choice. The biology tells him randomness is king, not bloodlines. Eventually they populate Mars without additional help from Earth. 100 years later Mars is a utopia while Earth heads into a dark age. Eventually they return sharing the secret of Mars, everlasting life caused by some particle Dave dreamt about one night. And then Cat-U creates an experiment to capture the particle, which of course succeeds. The world finally believes their telepathy story and reunites globally to complete Leon's original vision for Mars, and they wanted the long-life particle as Cat-U's experiment fails on Earth. Leon, now an android complete with his original consciousness, sheds a tear. which is considered a miracle since the android has no tear ducts, but the tears are analyzed and a perfect match to Leon's DNA. Once again the world forgets about Katyu and Dave and focus on this new unexplainable mystery. End of story. Dave is the source of the video, but Leon, Dave, Katyu, and the most advanced radio technicians in the world don't know how he does it, but they all keep his secret. End of story. God is the source of the video and Dave and Katyu really are Adam and Eve, but God needs them on Mars, and contrary to popular belief God is unable to interact with matter, only minds. End of story. God's will, no questioning God's will. Aliens are the source of the video, Dave's dad's idea to test Katyu as a new queen for their home planet. The aliens pick them both up on Mars and return them to their home planet, where the offspring of Katyu and Dave will reinfuse their world with new human DNA. DNA that allows telepathy. The world is shocked when their communications from Mars end suddenly and without explanation. End of story. Comedians in another dimension secretly feed Dave comedy routines through some cosmically entangled gravity wave system. Dave and Katyu perform, and absolutely massacre on Kill Tony before exposing their secret. The world assumes they are nuts, and Katyu and Dave exit stage left to a private island that Leon set up for them. Apparently Leon got quite a deal on the property due to some controversy. Dave and Katyu prove telepathy on the island and then return to society to teach the world their method. It's not easy and most people give up, except comedians in this dimension. Many manage to open the channels and together they all move to Austin, Texas to create the comedy capital of the world. In the process they end homelessness worldwide, by saving humanity through laughter. End of story. XXX, no Mars. Dave, Katyu, and Leon are discredited when Dave loses the ability to communicate with telepathy after smoking a ton of DMT with newly made friends following the now famous JRE podcasts. Leon loses all of his companies, but vows to rebuild his life and fortune. Dave and Katyu travel the world talking to the remaining believers. But with no source of income they resort to selling Dave's sperm to their followers who believe it will give their children telepathy. Unfortunately Dave is unable to convince Katyu that artificial insemination is against God's will and instead of selling sperm he should impregnate the women. Via the direct approach, he fails to convince his wife. What's worse is the man's source must be collected dry. Dave's not allowed to use lube, not even his favorite brand, a brand he developed personally, and their backup source of income aptly named D&KY. Their catchline being, a jelly-like coconut oil lube. Not helping, Katyu refuses to assist in the semen collection process, claiming carpal tunnel syndrome. Dave thinks it's a bullshit excuse, but what can he do? Katyu wins in the end, she always does. End of story. End of story. Thanks for reading Dave's scripts and scraps. Subscribe for free to receive new posts and support my work.